I'm totally afraid. I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid of being humiliated. But I'm totally confident. The closer I get to the ring, the more confidence I get. The closer, I'm more confident.
The new definition of confidence. Confidence is the willingness to try.
My confidence comes from both my faith and in the fact that I keep promises I make to myself.
Borrow confidence from the past.
Confidence. Confidence. Confidence.
Confidence. Confidence.
Confidence. Confidence.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Like, how is the situation out there? Like, is everything okay or?
Yeah, I'm sure you've read. Where are you calling from?
I'm from India.
Okay, yeah. So, well, obviously we have the pandemic, and now we have our president being a terrible human being and all of everything else. So, yeah, it's a little crazy here, to be honest.
Yeah.
It definitely feels a little.
Recently, I'm seeing the news like there are like so many tear gases. Like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a weird version of democracy right now. That's for sure.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, no, I'm not in a place where there are protests right now. But I'm like originally from Washington, D.C. So I'm going back next week. So I'll be curious if they're still going on. And
because like today only I watched in a news article that there is like so much going on in Washington, D.C.
Yes, very much so. My parents actually not very far from the White House, so it's kind of crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, totally nuts. Totally nuts. How is it in India?
India is like slowly and steadily they are opening small businesses. So because like the people need to get the livelihood, right? So if they stay in home, then they don't get paid. So that's why they're opening small businesses. But with regards to schools, colleges, they are like still like closed. Maybe they'll open in August. They're planning.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, who would have thought?
Yes.
So I can tell you a little bit about me if you want. Really,
yes, for sure.
Yeah, this is really just designed for you to ask any questions you have, and hopefully me telling you a little bit about me can help you. And if it ends up being that you need to talk to someone else also, I can do my best to try to connect you with someone, although it is summer, so you never know what's going to happen with people's availability. So I actually just graduated. So technically now I'm an alum.
Congratulations.
I'm a second year. Yeah, so I just graduated virtually, which was very interesting. I'm originally from DC, as I mentioned. I went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, if you're familiar with that, for undergrad, and then went back to DC before school and worked for about 5 years in public transit. So like planning buses and subways and bike share systems for cities. And then I decided to get an MBA for a few different reasons. Chose Texas for a lot of different reasons, which I can definitely share if you're interested. And then kind of wasn't sure what I wanted to do, found operations and supply chain, realized it was something I'm really interested in. So studied that and spent my summer at Amazon in their Pathways Operations program last summer. And then we'll be going back full-time in September to a site outside of Oakland, California, so the San Francisco Bay Area. On campus, I was involved in a number of different things. I was in the Graduate Business Council, which is the student government. I led community service and fundraising, got to plan some really cool events like a dog show for charity. I was also in operations fellows and board fellows. Board fellows is the one where you sit on the board of a nonprofit, so can share light on the fellows programs. I was also in Graduate Women in Business, which is a great organization, not just to promoting women, but also professionally. I actually got an internship offer because of an event I went to from them. And one of my favorite things was being an improv club, something I totally had no idea about before getting to grad school, but it was actually really fun. And one fun thing I actually did travel to India with the school. I went on one of the spring break trips. And so we went around looking at different businesses, which was really fun. We even got to celebrate Holi. Yeah, it was really fun. And then I also got to study abroad. So I spent my last semester in London this year. It was cut short because of everything that happened, but it was really fun and a cool experience. So that was like a lot of information. So hopefully that helps you kind of figure out. But yeah, if you have questions on other things, feel free to ask. I may know some things. And then if I don't, I can try to find you an answer somewhere else.
Sure. Like, congratulations for graduation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also your place, like you have that full-time opportunity in your hands, right? So, like, how is your feeling? Are you excited?
To start work? Ooh. Not really. I think grad school, like, my boyfriend's applying for law school right now, and law school seems like very stressful, and like everyone goes and you're kind of just like really excited to be done. And MBAs are so different because they're really like a lot of fun, and you get to meet so many people, and you get to travel so much, and you learn some great things along the way. And so it's kind of really sad to be done, I think. I don't think I'm really ready to go back out into the real world. I am excited to have a paycheck, but yeah, it's kind of weird because a lot of us picked kind of later start dates. Like I don't start until September, thinking we'd have like one more summer to kind of travel and hang out, and now with everything going on, it's kind of not what the summer is. But a lot of us keep going back and forth on trying to start early or not. So right now I'm keeping it at September, but we'll see if maybe next month I feel differently.
Okay. So like why you chose MBA? Why don't you go for other degrees?
Yeah, so for me, I had spent my career in like kind of a niche area, what we call like urban planning. I don't know if they use the same term in India. And I was feeling like I was kind of just like stagnant in my career, and felt like everything I wanted to do, I was like, I don't really want to like stay at this job, move up. And I had this kind of idea of all these things that I thought I wanted to do. And the key theme in all of it was like, I need the skills. Like it ranged from like owning my own business to like leading a transit agency and like running all of their operations. And I was like, my undergrad was very, very, very liberal artsy. And I, yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry.
No worries. Sorry, I took a bite while you were gone. So I kind of felt like I needed the skills that an MBA provided, and to get where I wanted to be career-wise. But to be honest, like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the MBA, but everyone I talked to that had an MBA was doing things that I thought were really interesting. So I kind of just did a little bit more research, tried to understand like what the degree was worth, what you kind of got out of it, and realized that like all the skills I would get are things I didn't have. And so it seemed like it was really kind of not only going to be helpful in my career, but just like helpful in terms of my learning and like professional development. That was a lot of my decision.
And like you said, you have got so many skills through this degree. So can you explain like what are the skills that you learned other than like from the job career?
Yeah. So I would start with like, for me, since I didn't have any business background, just like the hardcore, like finance, accounting, those types of things, you know, like the things you learn in the classroom are the easiest way to do it. So just like having a basic understanding, you know, being an MBA doesn't mean you're going to be an accountant, but being able to understand like the basics of kind of accounting and being able to talk to accountants and understand what you're looking for, I think is huge. What I want to do is my next job at Amazon, I'll be like one that's always in charge of cutting costs. So having those skills and being able to look at numbers is going to be really helpful. I think another thing is simply just public speaking and interviewing, which is something that I hadn't interviewed for a job since I left college. Like I stayed at the same company. And so it's just, I think, a really underrated skill, kind of how you're communicating and how you're communicating to other people. And also through a lot of like case competitions at school, I really learned A, PowerPoint, which I had like known but didn't really know, and B, just like how to present a persuasive argument in a way that's like really interesting to the audiences. And a lot of that I learned through, we have like what they call MBA communication coaches, which are like the most underrated part of McCombs. There are these people that have PhDs in communications, and you can use them for 8 hours a year, which sounds like not a lot, but try to find 8 hours in your schedule, and it's kind of challenging. I didn't even end up finishing them all. And they're just amazing. They will help you with everything from working on a pitch to doing an interview. And especially in case competitions, they'll like sit with your whole group and kind of walk you through the whole presentation. And just the amount of times I worked with them and just kind of did that really helped me just kind of understand like how to come up with the persuasive argument in a way that really like makes your audience understand. And I actually like won a case competition, and I won a lot of money because of it. So I really appreciate that. I think the other thing is just like the importance of a network. And knowing people and knowing how to foster those relationships was really big. You know, I was definitely someone that in public transit, like networking is not really a thing. It's like, oh, let's go hang out at this like bar and talk about like street design. Like it's like not a cool thing. And so that was just like a total change of pace. And while I didn't recruit for something that was particular, like I didn't do consulting, so it wasn't like super network heavy, you still have so many events and so many times you need to reach out to alum and all those types of things that you start to learn like the tricks of the trade and kind of how to do it well. And so I think that was like pretty invaluable. And then I think a lot that I didn't expect was like learning about myself, which seems weird and like, what do you expect from an MBA in that sense? But, you know, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do when I got to school or like what I wanted out of the 2 years. And very quickly it became obvious that like what I wanted more out of the school than just like doing my classes and making friends was really like taking on leadership roles. And so like I got really involved in a lot of extracurriculars and found that I really like my favorite memories, a lot of them are from things related to these extracurriculars. And so that was like a really big insight for me on just like what it is that I'm passionate about and what makes me really excited, that I hope to like carry forward in my career. So yeah, I think it was a great experience. I'm sad to be leaving. But I definitely think I walked out like a different person than I walked in.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
Like what you have learned from your previous job? Like you said you worked for 5 years, right? So
yeah.
What have you learned from that experience?
Yeah, so I worked and I was like a consultant in public transit, which is not like a fancy like Deloitte consulting thing. It's like a local, we would like travel all of like 3 hours to get to someone. So I had learned kind of like how to manage clients. I had started learning how to manage projects and teams, which I think is very different culturally than in India, where like your first or second year out of the school, you're managing like 50 people. But for us, it's like a very big deal to start managing. So I had just started managing. One of my things was definitely like teamwork because I had always worked in teams. So I was very used to working in teams, which was very helpful in my MBA. And then I think just kind of like knowing, this is a weird thing to know, but kind of when to say yes to things and when to say no. I was like the 6th or 7th person hired at my company out of undergrad, and it grew. By the time I left, it was almost 40. And so like it being my first job and being one of the few kind of like analyst level people to start, everyone would give me work and I would just say yes, 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 yes. And like I really realized, I don't know, a year and a half in, that like this was not sustainable. And so I started to learn how to effectively be like, I can't do this. And that was incredibly helpful skill. Not necessarily in my MBA, like yes, saying no to part of a project is like, okay, cool, I know how to do that. But definitely my summer internship at Amazon, it was really helpful to kind of be able to be like, this is what I can feasibly do in the amount of time I have, and this is what I can't. And yeah, so that's what I would say.
Yes, like you said, you worked, you did an internship at Amazon. Like, what was that experience like, and what have you learned? And like that experience helped you to get the full-time job, right? Like, yeah. Can you share that?
Yeah, so my internship was probably very different than a lot of MBA internships because it's an MBA design program, but it's in a fulfillment center. or their distribution center. So it's a little different. It's not like you're going into an office every day. But instead of kind of managing people for the summer, you're just working on one project. So you're very much like self-led. No one's going to guide your hand, which was totally new to me. And no one actually really knew much about the project I had been given. So it was a lot for me in terms of confidence boosting, because I got there and was like, I don't know anything about this. How am I ever going to figure out a problem that they've been trying to solve at Amazon for years? Like, what am I going to provide as like a recent first year MBA who has like maybe 5 years of experience, not related at all to operations? And also, to be honest, most people in this world at Amazon are engineers, and I am not an engineer by any means. So I think it was a little just daunting to start. And I think, having a lack of direction, which is usually my greatest fear, like I need someone to be like, this is what you need to do and this is what you need to do. I definitely thought like I'm going to fail, and kind of went into it like, if I don't get the offer, I don't get the offer. Like, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. But it was actually a really good learning experience. I got lucky and had an incredible boss who was really great, super supportive, but also very much like pushed me to do more. And doing that really helped because I was able to successfully kind of navigate through the fears of like the unknown of what am I going to do, and come up with actually like a decent project. And yeah, I did get a return offer. I will be honest and say that, and I don't know if this is true, but this is my impression, that a lot of internships, it really matters the work you do. 100%, that's very important. But also a huge part of it is like, can they see you in the role? What are your personalities? Have you formed relationships? Like, they care a lot more than just like what it is that you present at the end of the summer. And I had another intern at my site who I think focused a lot on his project and the deliverable, and did not focus as much on like building relationships and making it kind of that effort, and did not get a return offer. So I do think that like wherever you intern, wherever you go to school, whatever that is, like do keep that in mind for your internship. And that's just my personal experience, but I did hear a similar thing from a lot of my friends who did consult.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like if you have an MBA from a top school, you're going to be really smart and you're going to be able to do the work. And more of it is like, what is the difference you're going to make at the person level? So
yes, as a team, as a personal level.
Definitely.
Yes. And like, have you got that internship opportunity at first place? Like,
yeah, so I recruited through campus. So I did all my on-campus recruiting, as we call it. So I used career services at Texas.
okay.
The way Amazon works is a little different than some other companies that I recruited for. They have like a networking event on campus and then they bring in alum for coffee chats. To be honest, I did none of it. I was like, Amazon was so off my radar. I was like, I don't really want to work at Amazon. I'm not really interested in it. The one operations program, which is the one I ended up getting, seemed impossible for me to get with my background. I was like, they only hire engineers. They're never going to hire me. But never say never. So I honestly just threw my resume into this like Amazon portal that they use. And then they send you like a link to do some online kind of like scenario tests. They'll be like, it will like set it up like you're the manager of a team and Henry sends you an email, like how do you respond? And you have like 4 different choices. I honestly thought I bombed the thing. I was like, I don't know what these answers are. Like I was just like guessing as much as I could of what I would actually be doing. And then I got an email that was like, congrats, you've gotten an interview. I actually did the interview. It was like my last interview and I had already had gotten a few offers and was like, kind of like, I'm not going to pick Amazon anyway. So I went in like super relaxed and didn't really care. It is a 4-hour interview. It's jarring. It's with 4 different people, and Amazon is notorious for not being very nice during their interviews. So you often get people that are like very cold, don't really show emotion. That wasn't necessarily my case, but I will say it was definitely not like the friendliest experience. And then a few days later, I got an email that was like, congrats, you got the offer. So I didn't really have to network. I never spoke to anyone at Amazon. It's very much like not a networking company. That being said, it's one of the few like that. But it's just the way they work. So in some sense it was kind of easy, but it's not easy, but it is easy.
And you said it's for 4 hours, right? The interview process, like what they ask, like is it from your resume or any other extra questions?
Yeah, so it's a lot. So they're very focused on their like 14 leadership principles.
Okay.
And so they ask questions entirely around those. So yeah, it's everything. It's a lot of like, tell me about a time when you use data to do this, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's a lot, and you have to be careful to try to not repeat the same stories, or if you do, to talk about them in a different way. But luckily, as I mentioned, the communication coach, I had met with them. I had been, luckily for some sense, it had been like my last of my internship interview. So at that point I was pretty well versed on interviewing. I felt like pretty comfortable. But I did like meet with the communication coach, I think before my Amazon one, and they really know the ins and outs of different companies' interviewing styles. So they did like a mock 30-minute one with me of just like the style of like how what they do is they really dig into your answers. So like they'll start with like a tell me about your time, and then you'll say something in your answer, and then they'll dig deeper into that. So yeah, it can be, I think, a little offsetting for people, like just feeling a little afraid of like, oh my God, what are they gonna ask me? But it's an interesting experience to have. Whether or not you end up at Amazon or not, it's a good interview experience to have.
Yes, definitely. Like before going to the interview, have you taken like a help for resume building?
Oh, sorry, what?
Like preparing, like have you taken any help to build your resume?
So in the fall, like before you even really start recruiting, as a first year at Texas, you're enrolled in this career class. It's just a one credit class that meets, I think, once a week, and they focus a lot on your resume. And before that, even in the summer, you're required to submit a resume and you get feedback on it. And then you have second years who you're assigned with who will meet with you and help you on your resume. You can also meet with those communication coaches and they look over your resume. So way long before I applied to Amazon, my resume was pretty much solid. Obviously, like as your school year goes on, there are certain things you want to add. And so I added those things, like an MBA plus consulting project, as we call them. I'd added like my club positions and those kinds of things. But for the most part, my bullets were pretty solid before, which was great because come like late in the fall, you're so busy that the last thing you really want to be worrying about is like getting your bullets right. But they make sure that those are pretty much in order before then.
So it should be like one-page resume, right? Or
yeah, I would say definitely one page. I think the general rule of thumb, especially when you're applying to an MBA, is unless you have 10 years of work experience, your resume should be a page. So if you have 10 years of work experience, then maybe consider 2 pages. But I have found that I interview a lot of people, and I have found that the strongest resumes are ones that say things succinctly and very clearly and quantify the results. So yeah,
like
resumes are
like you said, you interview people like for what? Is it for like a class, or is it for an extracurricular activity?
Oh, sorry, what? I interviewed for what?
No, you said you interview people, or you got the guidance?
I interview prospective students. So I'm on the ambassador committee.
Okay.
So I interview prospective students. So I interviewed a bunch of people for this future class. So yeah, so I get to see the resumes of the prospectives. Granted, I don't judge the resume. I just use it to kind of figure out what the person's doing. But from my personal opinion, those are the best.
Yes, like before applying to McCombs, like have you applied to any other business schools other than this?
Yeah, I applied to the University of Washington in Seattle and then Berkeley in San Francisco. I chose specifically, you may guess it. So as I went to Michigan for undergrad, I really hated the cold. And so there's a lot of amazing schools in the US, but a lot of them are in cold places. And I had spent most of my life on the East Coast, as we call it, which is like the New York, DC, Florida coast, and was just kind of wanted a break from it, which really limits the type of schools you can apply to. There aren't a ton between the West Coast and Texas. But so I really narrowed my search down that way. And then it kind of became more about the school culture. So there were other schools out there, but I really wanted to focus on one that felt a little bit more down to earth and a little less competitive than kind of the stereotypical MBA experience. And Texas was really not on my radar. I was like all into California. I was like, I'm going to apply to like UCLA and USC and all these other schools. And I actually went to visit because I had some friends who lived in Austin, and I went for Women's Weekend and was just like really blown away. Not only by the school, but just by all the current students I met, how nice they were and down to earth. And I just felt like I was shocked and was like, I could really see myself here. So it kind of became really top choices amongst the others. And so I ended up applying, and I did get money. So I got money to go to Seattle, and I also got money to go to Texas. And it was a hard decision, but I chose Texas because I just felt like it was a better fit for me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think I have never looked back on my decision and regretted it. I think it was a really smart decision for me. I think Austin was great. I loved it. I wish I could have stayed after, but it wasn't an option with Amazon. But it was just such a great group of people. And one thing I totally forgot to mention is I was looking for smaller class sizes. So all those schools I just mentioned are like less than 300 people. I had gone to such a big undergrad. I really wanted kind of that smaller community feel, and that was definitely the case.
Like what about here in McCombs? Like what is the class size?
So it's about 260 to 270 per class.
Oh, okay. Hello. 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 Hello.
So it's about 260, 270. My year was like 280 the first year because they had a joint degree with med students who came just for the first year. So they were like counted, but not really counted. But yeah, it's a good class size, I think. I knew everyone, which was unbelievable to be like, oh, I know everyone's name. And it was really fun.
Okay. Like, have you taken education loan for this MBA degree, or like how you funded yourself for this degree?
Oh, so I did get a partial scholarship. Texas is notoriously very generous. It's also one of the more affordable programs, which was huge. I did not have to take out loans. Long story short, had an accident and had money in savings, and was able to fund it that way. So I, in some sense, kind of lucky I didn't have to take out a loan. Not great to be using my savings, but it was a better option than taking out the loan for me. But there are plenty of loans out there, and the financial aid officers are amazing. Even though I didn't have a loan, I still worked with them a lot. And I like ran into their office at 9 a.m. on a Friday morning, which there's no one usually around on Fridays because we don't have class, because I had forgotten to pay tuition because I totally messed up the date. And he, within 15 minutes, was like on my case. He literally came in the office, was like, let's do this, fixed it all for me. They're just really nice people and really good at finding you money in random places.
Like how much it will cost approximately for 2 years?
So I was out of state, so was not a Texas resident. Yes. I'm not sure if it is different for international students, to be honest.
Yes, it's different. It will be different. Yeah.
I think it cost about, just tuition was like about $50,000 a semester, a year. Sorry, so it was about $100,000 for 2 years. It's like a little give or take with that. And then like living expenses probably in total were like a $25,000 for the 2 years, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. So yeah, it's definitely expensive, but I would say that based on my new salary post MBA, the return on investment was definitely worth it.
Awesome. Yes. Like because like for MBA admission, like to get an MBA admission, we need to attend an interview, right? Like how will be that interview? How we can prepare for that interview? Like what they expect from the student?
Yeah. So Texas's interview is very much designed to not be like a test. Like some schools like will ask you case questions or kind of like try to trick you. That's not at all what Texas's interview will do. In fact, if you look online for Texas MBA interview questions, you'll find almost all of them there. And they don't mind that they're out there. They're kind of like, go for it, prepare, like show us your best. And so it's more of just like, it will be either with a current student or potentially an alum or potentially an admissions officer, although very unlikely the latter if you're international. And yeah, it's more of a like get to know us, tell you what you've been doing for the last few years, really knowing like why do you want to get an MBA and why Texas are probably the most important things you can know for the interview. And I would say it's a lot just about like, have you done your research and do you seem like a genuinely good fit for the school?
Yes, like, and what kind of experience matters to get into the like MBA?
Yeah, I think a part is like they definitely want to see progression towards leadership experience or just an interest in it. That's kind of, I think, what a lot of people look for. And that doesn't necessarily have to be found in your career. Like a lot of people, as I said, in the US don't necessarily get the opportunity to manage a team before coming back, like a formal team. So like a lot of people have leadership experience from an extracurricular that they do. So that's definitely an option. I would also say that they're looking for teamwork, kind of like how do you work with teams? Are you collaborative? And then I think a lot of it is like, honestly, overcoming obstacles, but just like, when have you been given kind of a difficult situation and what have you done with that? And when have you received criticism? Those kinds of questions are kind of what they're looking for, I would say.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And like teaching experience matters for that, or like, does it count?
Teaching experience?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a teacher, yeah, I have plenty of friends in my class who were teachers before school. I think a lot of people think like, how is teaching skills applicable to anything else? But they have been hugely successful. And I think that teaching actually provides a lot of great story examples of times when you've had to overcome something that was difficult or deal with a difficult situation. So yeah, I think that's totally a great opportunity.
And you said like in the exchange semester you went to London. Like, can you share that experience? Like why you chose that option?
Yeah, so I had studied abroad in undergrad. I went to Chile in South America, so very different experience. But I was really excited at the opportunity to kind of, I had this romanticized version of I'm going to go get an MBA and I'm going to get the chance to go live in Europe because it had been like something I always wanted to do, and it's not that easy these days. And so, and that's me saying that obnoxiously with a US passport, but it's like still not that easy for us. And so basically the way it works is your first year you can apply to study abroad, and you kind of put your preferences in on where you want to study. For me, I had been to London and loved it. And so I got lucky and got to study at London School of Economics. And it's really cool. It's like a semester exchange program they do with a bunch of different MBA programs. So there were actually 20 MBA students from across the US that were studying there. There were 3 others from Texas itself, but it was really fun to kind of get to meet people from different MBA programs and see their experiences and get to hang out with them. And we traveled together and it was really fun. And for me, it was really fun living in Austin, which is more, I mean, it's a city, but to me, living in DC, it's kind of more of a small town. It's great. I love it. But living in London was just fun because it's like such a big city and it's really easy to travel and there's just so much culture and so many things to do. Unfortunately, it was like the worst time of year to be there. I was there from like January to March because it got cut short. So it was like terrible, terrible weather, but it was still a lot of fun. And I got to take classes there, which was really interesting just to see in general, like how different the education system is across the globe, but also to get to kind of learn some different things that I didn't really have time to study at Texas. And yeah, it's definitely, I would say a lot of people kind of are hesitant because you miss out on semester in Austin and you only have 2 years there. But had COVID-19 not happened, my plan, you usually end really early. So I was actually I was done in April, and Texas classes weren't done until the end of May. So I was actually going to go back to Austin and spend my last like 2 months in Austin, just hanging out with everyone. Unfortunately, that isn't what happened because of the pandemic. But that's what like all the study abroad students were going to do. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, because you have a fun last semester and then you get to go back and have fun with all your friends. But yeah, no, it was a really cool experience, really awesome. I was like, wow, I really want to live in London full time now, but I also don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, it was great.
Like, is this option available to all the students in your class, or like?
Yeah, definitely available to all students, including international students. There were actually a lot of international students that went abroad. And yeah, it's open to anyone, and the cost is the same. You pay Texas tuition. And yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. And like, I have some questions related to international visa things, but you don't know about those things, right?
Yeah, I probably don't know anything about it. Other than that, it's really complicated and hard.
Yes. Like, do you know any international students who came from India or any other different countries so that I can contact them?
Yes, I do. And I can definitely connect you with one of them or a few of them. I am trying, so I know mostly of the second years who are alums now, but I can ask some of the first years. They're probably more available this summer, and they also probably just went through it really recently. So I can ask around and email you with a contact that you can reach out to.
Sure. Like, can you also give any contact who completed the second year, because like I want to ask them regarding like OPT, like after graduation things. So
yeah, definitely. I can definitely connect you to someone that can help you with that.
Sure. Like, these are all the questions that I have. Like, can you explain, like, I attended one of the full MBA event. Like, there are so many info sessions, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I attended one of them. And like, can you explain like about MBA plus program?
Yeah, so they are like what you could call like a mini consulting project, and you can do them every semester if you want. They're offered each semester. So for me, I did it my first semester at school, and I did a project for Hyatt Hotels. I don't know if you're familiar with Hyatt. And so it's cool. It's similar. It's like a little application process. So they release all of the projects for the semester at once, and then you kind of comb through them and try to figure out which ones you're interested in. I personally was career switching and like knew I wanted something else on my resume. So it was a really great opportunity for me. So I think I looked at a few different ones. Hyatt was my first choice, and I got lucky and got it. And it was a really cool experience. I got to work with a new team of people, because at that point it was still like only October, and I had really only worked with my study team that they assign you. And we actually got to travel out to Chicago. The project was led from the Hyatt side by an MBA McCombs alum. So it was really great. He was super understanding of our time commitment, et cetera. So yeah, we got to fly out to Chicago. They took us to a really nice dinner. I was like, wow, this is nice. And then we actually presented to like the director of rooms for all of the Americas. So the project had a lot of visibility, which I was kind of shocked by. I was like, what do we know? Like, none of us have experience in hotels. But yeah, it was a really awesome experience. And then I put it on my resume because I kind of just wanted something that was like different than all the transportation I'd been doing. And I expected people to be like, oh, I know this is kind of like a mini consulting project, like whatever. But everyone I interviewed with was super interested in the project. They really like took it as if it was a real work experience, which was awesome. And I definitely think it helped me like pivot my career. So yeah, they're great. I only did one. I did do another consulting project in my spring semester, but it was through operations fellows. So it was a little different, but I would say that the MBA Plus projects are a really great opportunity to kind of explore different career paths, look at different companies and see if you're interested. And there's so many of them. You could do one in almost anything. And if there is a project that you want to do, you can actually self-source them, and you can find other people that are interested in it and do that. And I think a few of my friends did that at some point, but I'm not sure when exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, really cool opportunity.
And like you said, you participated in like so many extracurricular activities. Like, how they help you to like in your MBA and also in your job interview process and all that?
Yeah. So the big thing for me was like taking on leadership positions in these roles. So for operations fellows, I was in charge of recruitment, which is something I had really never done. But honestly, it was so helpful to see like how to recruit people, how to make a program seem really interesting, how to sell it, and then like how to behind the scenes organize like all of the interviewing of people, the resume review, the application reviews, what to look for in candidates, and kind of then the selection process of like, okay, now we have all these candidates, we have all the opinions, like who do we actually take? Honestly, I signed up for it thinking it would just be fun. It was an incredible amount of work, but I learned so much just about like what it's like to find people and kind of decide who makes it and who doesn't.
What you look like when you interview a person, like what you look in a person, like oh, this is the right choice for this position, like how you hire them?
Yeah, so for me, for operations fellows, a lot of it was similar to the McCombs interview in general. It was like, are you really interested in our program? And it's pretty easy to tell. Like, I honestly was like, is this going to be hard? Like, people could just be bullshitting us. It is so easy to tell when people know what they're talking about and when they don't. That was like a really eye-opening experience for me of like, oh, I get it. Like, they don't really know what they're talking about. They're not really interested in it. They just want it on their resume versus like, oh, they're really passionate about this and we'll get the most out of the program. So that was a big thing. And then the other thing is just like operations fellows is like a select group. And so we like have intimate meetings with professionals that are in the C-suite. And so you do want people that can handle themselves in those kinds of situations and provide insight and ask insightful questions. And so a lot of what we look for is like, are they curious and are they professional enough? Which by the time you get to an MBA, like most people qualify in those, but that was kind of the other thing we were looking for. So yeah, I think it was really interesting. I think in my other positions, I learned a lot. Like in my community service position, I planned a ton of events. And I also learned how to get money from people that are students and have no money and how to do it in a really fun, creative way. Like giving people pieces of funfetti cake that costs $2 to make. So fun little things like that. And it was really fun to kind of get to know more of the school and also like get to know the Austin community was really fun, and planning a lot of volunteer events and how to get people out to those. So that was like a big thing. And I think for me, like being part of so many of the clubs, it was just good to know like what it is that I like to learn about, what it is that I'm kind of like about, and just getting to meet people from all different walks of life that the speakers that they bring in, or for improv club was just kind of doing something totally outside my comfort zone, but really making the most of it and learning a lot and having a lot of fun. It was really fun.
And like, have you felt any time like stressed out during the program or like no?
I think that the first semester is very stressful, and I think that's really the only one that's super stressful in an MBA. They have changed it though, so when I did it, it was like you had to take 8 classes, and on top of that, you had to do a consulting project, and on top of that, you had to start thinking about recruiting. They've changed it now, so the consulting project I mentioned is actually a class, so you're taking one less class, and that's kind of taking over the class. And they've pushed further back on recruitment to start later. So those things I think are really helpful. But I will say it's just stressful. It was especially stressful for me being more of what you call a non-traditional student, just like not knowing anything about any of these things. But your study team, my study team was incredible and so helpful. You do so much of your homework with them and you really learn from them. And I think the thing that's hard about an MBA is like, that's really the semester I felt like I was challenged the most in the classroom. But because there is also like so many fun things going on in an MBA at the time, it's a lot of just like try to decide like, do I want to take a second to go study or do I want to go and listen to like the CEO of Whole Foods, if you know what Whole Foods is, like go speak. And so it's just kind of, or do I like want to go out with my friends? So it's just a lot of like, what is my priorities and, you know, what am I going to do with my time? Because your time is valuable in an MBA. And so, yeah, I think that was like the key, like part of stress for me. I got lucky. I got my internships offers and felt pretty comfortable with those. And then I got a return offer to come back. So my fall and my second year was pretty relaxed. Obviously for people that maybe didn't have that experience, it may be a little bit more stressful. But the school is very focused on mental health and wellness. And so they do a lot of meditation events and free yoga classes and kind of different talks from different people about wellness in general. So they do their best to manage it all. But yes, it can be a little stressful, but
Yes, like, and how many credits we need to complete to get an MBA? Like,
I think technically it's like 60.
okay.
But it's a little different. Like each school is different because we're on the semester system, not the quarter system. But it basically comes out to like 4 or 5 classes a semester.
Oh, okay.
So that's what you can kind of expect. And I found that to be pretty manageable.
It's like a double the masters. Like for masters, it would be around 30 credits. So
yes, I don't know really anything about credit hours, but that's about probably right.
yes, like why you chose particularly this specialization? Why not you chose like entrepreneurship or any other specializations in MBA?
Yeah, so for me, it was just like what I was interested in, and also some caveats about McCombs and concentrations. I actually love this about it. So these concentrations are really for you. So like we are allowed to put them on our resume. They're just really roadmaps though. It's like, here are some classes we recommend you taking if you're interested in this topic. But it's really used more from a recruiting standpoint. Like nowhere on your transcript does it say concentration in anything.
Okay.
I actually know people that like changed their concentration on their resume depending on where they were applying, as long as they had like a certain number of classes that fit the bill. So for me, it was really great. It gave me a lot of flexibility. For me, I realized kind of early on in the fall that operations was what I was interested in. And so that's how I picked the concentration. But I got to take, that never really limited what classes I took. I took a lot of classes that fall outside of operations that were really great and helped me a lot in terms of that. But I used it kind of as like a guiding force of like, okay, I should try to sign up for this class or not this class or that class.
And like this is not related to MBA, but like what is your purpose in your life? Like what you want to achieve in life?
Yeah. So for me, it's really always been about kind of making a difference. As I mentioned, like I was in charge of community service and fundraising, and I had worked in my career in public transit to really like help disadvantaged people. And you'd be surprised that I'm going to Amazon to do that. And I also was surprised myself because my whole plan was like, I'm going to go work at one of these big companies, take all the information that I can from them, and then go and work for a company that's mission is really like we're helping people. But to be honest, like, yes, that is definitely still my plan, but I've kind of started to look at my Amazon experience a little differently because I'll be in a warehouse, and as much as I'm sure this is similar in India, but the Amazon warehouse, there's a lot of what you could call inequality in the sense that like people working the front line are hourly employees, and there's a lot of managers who are making a lot of money that are telling them what to do. And I felt like the environment was really challenging and also gave me the opportunity to kind of be the person that's like treats the employees in the front line like humans and listens to them and kind of tries to help them instead of just being like, do this, yes. You're going to get fired. And so I've kind of been able to change my mindset of like, obviously I still want to go work at a company that does good, and that is 100% still my plan. But in the meantime, while I'm at Amazon, it's not so much just about learning. It's also like, I could have the potential to make a difference in these people's lives. And yeah, it's on a micro scale, but sometimes it's better to be able to be like, oh, I'm making a difference immediately, rather than like in public transit, it's like, I'm planning a bus that will help people in like 15 years. So there is that give and take. But yeah, that's my passion. So hopefully it will work itself out.
Yes, that's like a very good, and all the best for it. And like what you want to tell to the prospective students like me?
Sorry, what do I want to say? What?
Like what is your message, or what is your message to prospective students?
Yeah, I would say that that like choosing to get an MBA seems really daunting, and you're kind of like, is this the right thing for me? Is it not? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Is it worth the money? It's a lot to apply. And I definitely never really felt that because I was so determined to leave work and was like, I'm doing this. But I have to say that what the MBA provides, it gives you so much career flexibility. Like, you could be sitting there right now and be like, this is exactly what I want to do in my future. I have a plan. And then like you walk in the first day and you're like, oh my God, like I could do 8 million different things. And for me personally, like I went in thinking like I was going to work at like a social impact organization and like run a nonprofit. And that plan obviously didn't happen because I was able to learn so much about different things and different ways I could be helpful and get so many different career options. And the reality of an MBA is like, yeah, my first career job is not exactly in the field that I was like, thought I was going to go into, but I still have like a very clear plan of how I'm going to get there. And also like what I want has changed a little. And so, yeah, I think it's just like an incredibly valuable degree that can help you in any life. And I think it's super helpful hearing from alumni. It's one of the most powerful things to be able to career switch later in life. So, like, if you get to your career, you're 15 years into it, you're like, I'm done doing this, having an MBA in the back door is like, oh, wow, maybe they are confident enough to be able to do it. I think it's a really valuable degree. No matter where you go to school, it's valuable.
And these are the questions I have, and thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And I will can you email me and remind me to set you up with someone for the visa so that I remember? Thank you.
Yeah.
But it was great talking to you, and stay safe and healthy.
Sure. Like, stay safe and all the very best for the future.
You too. Have a good one.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
There's a difference. I want to do it and I want to be a rock star, right? Like, and that's where you influence people. Like, you know, like I want to do it, but I also want to be the most popular. And so then that person's like, oh, I want to be him. So I guess I'll be nice. Like I want to literally take people who have DNA that's kind of nice and make them more nice